Go for it.
Good evening and welcome to the Meet the Candidates event for the Town of Charlton Council member. All the candidates on the ballot were invited. This event was organized by the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County. My name is Anne Marie Pendergast and I am a member of the League of Women Voters and I will be your moderator tonight. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer political organization that is dedicated to keeping citizens informed and active in government. The League never, ever supports or opposes any political party or candidate. That has been League policy since our founding in 1920. Membership is open to anyone who is eligible to register and vote, whether male or female. Please consider joining your local league. Before we start, I want to remind candidates and our audience that the video taken tonight is the property of the League and can only be used by the League or licensed media according to FCC regulations. This event will be posted in its entirety. It may not be used by the candidates except to post a link to the complete video. We do not make this request lightly. We've had recent experiences where candidates or their supporters have used portions of the video inappropriately or an audience member's own video against their opponents. The League is a nonpartisan organization and the use of the video by a campaign specifically to harm another candidate goes against our purpose. And it would really make it difficult for us to hold future forums because it discredits our work here. All candidates participating this evening have pledged that they will abide by this policy, and we ask the audience to as well. The questions tonight were sent in by members of the community. League members reviewed and compiled them to be representative of the questions submitted and to avoid redundancy. We reject questions of a personal nature. Candidates, this is your opportunity to let voters know your stance on these topics and how you will address the issues facing the town of Charlton. Please don't waste valuable time tearing down or labeling your opponent. Deal with the facts. In your closing statements, there will be no zingers. In other words, no putting your opponent on the spot without a chance to respond. We have timers for this event. Cards will be held up for the candidates to glance at. Green means 1 minute left. Yellow means 30 seconds left. And red means that time is up. There are 3 candidates tonight for 2 council member positions. The 3 candidates in alphabetical order are Jenna C. Smith, who will be on the Democratic and Moderate Party lines on the ballot, Paul M. St. John, who will be on the Republican and Conservative Party lines on the ballot, and Christopher J. Tass, Republican and Conservative Party line. Now it is time to hear their 2-minute opening statements. They have drawn lots to determine the order. The first to speak tonight is Paul.
Good evening. I apologize for my appearance this evening. I'm afraid I have been under the weather the past few days, but I do appreciate the opportunity to answer questions from our residents. I'm grateful that we can do this evening. My name is Paul St. John. I was raised here in the town of Charlton. Spent my youth fishing in the Outlaws and ice skating on the Mill Pond Park. And these were all things that I really was glad I had an opportunity to do. And now my own children, I'm privileged to be able to raise here in the town of Charlton, and privileged that they can go to the Burnt Hills School District. Now that there's an opportunity to support the town and take advantage of an open seat, I'm grateful for the opportunity, for the endorsement, and grateful that we could have this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Next, we'll have our opening statement from Jenna.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the Charlton seniors for making this event possible. My name is Jenna Smith, and I was appointed to the town board earlier this year. I chose to apply for the vacancy on the town board because I represent important points of view that deserve a seat at the table. As the only farmer, as the only lawyer, and the only woman, I've been able to immediately add value to both the discussions and the decisions that the town board has made in the past year. By way of background, I was born and raised on my family's farm, Smith Brothers Farm and Smith's Orchard Bake Shop. In high school, I had the opportunity to serve as the student delegate to the town's comprehensive planning committee, which sparked my interest in land use. I attended Dartmouth College and the University of Washington Law School and spent 2 years in DC working on the 2012 Farm Bill. After clerking in federal court, I'm now an antitrust attorney in private practice, and I enjoy spending my free time helping my parents on the farm and in the bake shop. On the town board, I serve as the liaison for land use issues, which I believe to be among the most pressing challenges that the town faces. The challenge is finding an appropriate balance between protecting Charlton's rural character and open space and allowing for responsible growth without impeding on landowners' rights. This is a challenge I am prepared to meet. I'm also a strong proponent for fiscal responsibility, and I will work hard to continue Charlton's longstanding tradition of no town tax. I am a consensus builder by nature, and I've created the moderate party so that we can focus citizens on the issues that actually matter. I'm beholden to no one and will always do what's in the town's best interest. Partisan politics have no place in town hall, and I think the town board we currently have is all the better for it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve Charlton citizens in this role, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in tonight's discussion.
Thank you, Jenna. And our last opening statement will come from Christopher Tesse.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Christopher Tesse. I want to thank the League of Women Voters very much for putting this on. This is terribly exciting, and I am thankful to be a part of this. So I'm Christopher Tesse. I live on Sweetman Road with my wife and 2 children. My family's first house in Charlton was on Valentine. We spent summers at Charvale Pool, Halloweens at Emmerich's, winters letting people use our house phone to call a tow when they wound up in the snowbank around the bend, and winning trophies at the Founders Day Parade when we dressed up our bikes as F-14 Tomcats. In the mid-90s, my parents purchased land from Leslie Vincent just north of Mitchell's farm and built a house. And in my late teens, I was pushed out of the nest and resided in Saratoga County at all times. And 15 years ago, I even met my wife in Saratoga on Caroline Street. 10 years ago, we were looking to purchase a house, and we moved back in with my parents on Sweetman and purchased what we thought was going to be our forever home in Boston Spa. We lived there contently for 10 years and have seen the changes in Malta, Saratoga, Boston Spa, and the surrounding towns. And in early 2021, my wife and I were blessed with the opportunity to purchase the house on Sweetman from my parents. Raising children in the house my parents built was never a dream of mine, but once the opportunity presented itself, I was beyond excited to give my children an upbringing in the same surroundings that helped shape me. Before our move back into Charlton was even complete, I saw ways to get involved and be a positive force in the town I love. Initially, I interviewed for the open town board position. While not selected, was not deterred. I joined the technology committee, became the chair, helped the town navigate some major technological changes that needed to be made, formed the broadband subcommittee, and became the treasurer of the Charlton Snowmobile Club. I'm a son of Charlton. I love this town. I just want to help and guide it. I don't believe in partisan politics. I will reach across the aisle. I just want to do whatever I can to help the children and our future generations enjoy the same Charlton. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Okay, now it's going to be time for questions. Candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. You are not required to respond. You can pass if you want. You have 2 opportunities during the question and answer session to request 1 additional minute of time. And you can add that to a response or do an additional response after another candidate responds. Just hold up your hand and say red card, and I will acknowledge that, and timers will add an additional minute to your time. Red cards may be used, they can't be used in your opening and closing statements. And the timer and I will keep track of the number used, and you just have 2. Questions are going to be directed to candidates in rotation, with everyone getting a chance to respond first. So the first question is going to go to Paul, and then we'll hear from Jenna, and then we'll hear from Christopher. Our first question: the town has grown significantly over the past 10 years. How will you balance the demand for new or expanded services, including the maintenance of our parks, trails, and municipal properties, while keeping taxes reasonable?
Yeah, I'm a strong proponent of no town tax. I believe that we can be fiscally responsible, fiscally conservative, and avoid the town taxes. There's money in the budget for the needs that we have in this town. Yes, there's growth. Yes, there are going to be challenges over the next years. We've seen over and over again that people in New York who are living in higher crime, higher, lower quality of life places that want to be in Charlton. And it's up to us to remind those folks that it's the leadership that we've had in the past 50 years that have resulted in the town that we have now. I want to honor that legacy and continue that legacy through the future. And it's going to take all of us. We're going to need to have residents attend the town board meetings. We're going to need them to attend the zoning board meetings, and it's not something that's going to be simple. It'll be nuanced, and we're going to have to work on it together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next response comes from Jenna.
Thank you. Yes, the pressures for growth in Charlton are undeniable. Because the question is focused on the ability to provide services, I'll limit my answer to that. So starting with the parks and trails, because of the park fund that's currently in place when new houses are built, our parks and trails are actually fairly self-sufficient. We've got about $50,000 in the park reserve fund. We've also been very successful in applying and securing grants from local municipalities. So we just secured one where we're going to be able to expand the trail network in Elmer Smith Park. Charlton is fortunate to have its own police force. There aren't a lot of small towns that have been able to maintain this. I'm very grateful to our police force for keeping us safe. One thing that I think we need to keep our eye on is the volunteer fire departments, because increasingly volunteerism is down. One of my goals on the town board is, as a new generation of homeowner in Charlton, I want to encourage my peers to get involved. I want to encourage them to volunteer. And as a town, I think we need to be looking out for our volunteer fire departments. But none of that means that we need to look at a town tax. We have a budget hearing on Monday. We proposed a balanced budget that, again, includes no town tax. And I think there's a way to provide essential services while maintaining fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. And last, we'll have Christopher.
Could you just repeat the question again, please?
Sure. The town has grown significantly over the past 10 years. How will you balance the demand for new or expanded services, including the maintenance of our parks, trails, and municipal properties, while keeping taxes reasonable?
Yes, so I don't believe in any new town tax. I think that's a staple of the history of Charlton, that we've been able to maintain that. And I think that's a testament to prior town boards and prior involvement in the town, coming together, understanding what something like that would mean for us, and making choices based on that to avoid something like a town tax. But I do agree that there are some services, specifically in the emergency services, volunteer fire department, EMSs, that people need to be informed and understand that those services have a cost associated with them, and that money needs to come from somewhere, and that when the nearest ambulance is 20 minutes away and you've got an emergency that needs to put you in a hospital in less than 10, that is a very real and life-threatening situation. So I think the approach is right. I think we're in a good situation right now. We need to be mindful of this, inform the citizens, get them engaged, make them understand that the challenges that everybody in the town is facing, and budget a balance that hopefully addresses all of our needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will first go to Jenna, and then Christopher, and then Paul. What specific ideas do you have to support both large and small farms and agriculture-related businesses in the town of Charlton?
Thank you. This is my favorite topic. Charlton is fortunate to have many enduring family farms. The trend nationally is that small farms are disappearing at a rate faster than anyone would like to acknowledge. I think our land use policy is really important. So most of Charlton is actually in an ag district, which allows for the leasing of farmland and for landowners to obtain agricultural assessments, which is an important way to make farmland available. I also think we're fortunate to have a number of successful farm stands in Charlton. And so finding ways to cross promote, which I know is something that the town board has always done a great job of. Just listening to farmers and what are the needs and what are the ways that the town board and the rest of the citizens can show up for them.
Thank you. Christopher?
Yes, thank you. So I think the most important thing is, yes, engaging and having conversations with the farmers that are in the town. I think no one better understands their situation than the farmers and the challenges that they're facing. And I think as Jenna stated, right, they're part of what makes Charlton Charlton, and across the nation, they are disappearing. And I think that's a huge part of what makes Charlton Charlton. I have a pretty strong technology background, and while I'm not very strong at farming and don't have a green thumb, I do think that there are a lot of opportunities for me to use my technology background to maybe seek out alternative or leverage that to help farmers meet some of the challenges and the needs that they have to be productive, be able to sustain themselves, and not have to go to the wayside, because I would love to see them stay around for, again, my kids and future kids. It's part of what makes Charlton Charlton. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Paul.
I very much agree with what Christopher just said. And I'm a strong proponent of our agricultural history and our agricultural community. And I think this is going to be a nuanced and ongoing challenge. And the way that we're going to be able to all meet together is to continue to have residents come together, to come and tell us what it is that would help them. And as any opportunity I have, I will continue to be an advocate for the farmers and farming here in the town of Charlton. And if we need to change the zoning laws, then I'm all for getting residents together and changing those zoning rules to make it more appropriate or easier for farms to be profitable in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third question tonight will go first to Christopher. Do you have ideas for encouraging more volunteers for the volunteer fire department at the West Charlton, Harmony Corners, and Charlton volunteer fire departments? What backup plans do you have should people fail to volunteer to protect and rescue our town's residents?
Thank you. As I said before, I think the most important thing that we need to do is we need to involve, inform, and engage the residents. I think the biggest challenge we have is that people don't appreciate what is actually necessary to keep a volunteer fire department running, where that money comes from, and yes, not only financial, but the human resources required. My biggest plan would be to simply, find a way to engage, inform, and educate the town residents, so they not only understand what's necessary, but they also understand the implications of, if there is not a volunteer fire department and you call for help and you have to wait for the town over to send somebody out to bring you to a hospital to provide needed services, that is a very difficult situation to be in. And I think that at the end of the day, informing and engaging people so that they understand, and when we have to make choices, that they have the information necessary to make a choice to benefit us all. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person will be Paul.
I think it's an awareness problem. I don't think that we think about these services because 9 times out of 10, they're there when we need them. We haven't had a lot of issues lately where our emergency services have failed our residents. They do a great job. And we're very fortunate that that we have the people that are working, that are volunteering, are putting in that effort to keep us all safe. And I'm very grateful for them. But I think that it's a campaign, it's an awareness campaign. I think that we need to use the website through the town. We need to use the website through the fire departments. We need to educate and raise awareness until we get the fully staffed services that we all need. Thank you.
Thank you. And the person to respond will be Jenna.
Thank you. I think this is an issue that's really lurking out there and one that we need to be prepared to address. I'm most familiar with Harmony Corners Fire Department because that's where my father's been a volunteer his entire life, along with every other person in my family helping in some capacity. I also think there is this generational issue where even in my role as town board among my peers, people are surprised to learn that the town board is, primarily volunteers on a part-time basis. So I think encouraging, young people to get involved. Charlton is a town that is run by volunteers. So encouraging people to get involved is part of the problem. The other problem is it's expensive to train. It's expensive to train new members. So there's some FEMA money to help volunteer firefighters train new members. So I also, in my role on the town board, hope to be able to work with fire departments to be able to access that funding. I also think a social media campaign and encouraging people to understand that these services are provided by volunteers and that their volunteerism is essential to continue to provide the level of service that is necessary. I'm always amazed at how lean the budgets are for these departments and the quality of services that they are able to provide.
Thank you. Our fourth question this evening will first go to Paul. What do you consider to be the definition of rural community as it pertains to the town of Charlton? And how do you plan to maintain that feeling and sense of community?
I think a rural community, in my opinion, is defined by the planning of business here in the town. We don't allow just anyone to open up their shop. We could just as easily become a Clifton Park and allow anyone who wanted to open a business and to turn us into urban sprawl. It'd be very easy. By limiting the number of businesses that are able to open in our town and to also start thinking about our future. And if we need to change some of our zoning, need to change some of our rules and laws. I've heard some people suggest that it has to do with moratoriums on building roads. Some people I've heard say we just need to start increasing the number of frontage there is on new homes. So it's a nuanced and important topic that we're going to have to attack in this next 4 years. But I do believe that it's important, and I think it's not just important to me, but to all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Jenna.
Thank you. I think for many people, when you think of Charlton, you think of this quintessential rural community, and rural character is at the backbone of a lot of the decisions that we make. I think that the zoning and responsible land use policy is essential to maintaining that. A few years ago, we had a comprehensive planning steering committee, which was comprised of several very representative people. We had developers, we had farmers, we had teachers, we had business owners. We had, a tremendous group, and we worked on that plan for over 4 years. But that plan, sets forth our goals for the future. I also view that as a living document that needs to constantly be revisited to make sure that it is planning for the future and that it's adequately addressing our goals. But that plan means nothing without proper zoning and without zoning that can align with the goals of the comprehensive plan. So I think it's an ongoing issue that we always need to be mindful of. And I think it's probably one of the most important issues that the town board and the planning board and the ZBA are responsible for.
Thank you. And last, we'll hear from Christopher.
Apologize. Could you just repeat the question for me?
Sure. What do you consider to be the definition of rural community as it pertains to the town of Charlton? And how do you plan to maintain that feeling and sense of community?
So to put a fine point on it, I think the definition of the Charlton rural community, what people think about and what they like about Charlton is, we don't have high density. We don't have houses on top of each other. We don't have those split level, commercial on the bottom, residential on the top. We have farms. We have active farms. And what Jenna said, this is a town of volunteers. This is a town of people who are a community and who are in this together and recognize that this doesn't just happen by chance. It doesn't just happen because we all happen to pick this spot on the map to live. This happened because we understand what Charlton's about. We understand what it takes for it to be successful, and we're in it together. And it's only going to continue to be successful and be the rural Charlton that we know and love if, again, we're all involved and informed and active. And yes, it's going to come down to the planning board and the zoning board, because all that changes if the rules and the books allow for some of that stuff. That is the fastest way to change the face of Charlton in a very short period of time. And right now, things appear to be in an okay place, but it's important for people to come out to planning board meeting, town board meeting, tell us what's not working and what you aren't happy about, and then we'll have a conversation about where we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Our fifth question tonight, we're going to start with Jenna. And I think this is a question that you all touched in the last answer. So a resident asked, zoning ordinances were last updated in 1995 and 2005 to address both environmental changes and the growth of new residences. What changes, if any, do you feel should be made?
Thank you. So first, I think that the zoning was last updated in 2015. And the subdivision regulations and design and construction standards were last revised in 1995, but that was a long time ago. So I think it is important for us to constantly have our eye on those and determine if they are meeting our needs. First of all, I think that any zoning changes should be the result of a careful and deliberative process. I think they also should be done by a representative group of citizens. I recognize that that is, a little bit more cumbersome, but I think that that's the way that you get truly representative policy that works for all residents. That being said, I do think there are elements of the comprehensive plan that are not adequately reflected in the zoning. So one major issue that's come to light and as a result of attending recent planning board meetings is our wetlands. So there's no setback codified in our zoning regulations surrounding wetlands. So I think that the planning board has a policy of not allowing building within 100 feet of a wetland. I think we need to codify that to make it clear to all citizens what the rules are and to protect wetlands, which are a critical environmental thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher?
Yeah, just repeat the question one more time.
Sure. Zoning ordinances were last updated in 1995 and apparently 2015. To address both environmental changes and growth of new residences, what changes, if any, do you feel should be made?
Yeah, so like anything that's on the books, times change, things change, technology changes, the wants and needs of the people change. I think that any zoning and planning should be reviewed on a regular basis to make sure that it is meeting the needs of the town and the people that live there. I think that right now we are seeing with a couple of active subdivisions that there is a concern that even moving from 4 lots to 8 lots is going to have a significant impact on not only the traffic, the services, but also, yes, the environment, the wetlands. And I agree. I do not think that they're adequately codified into the current zoning. And it may be time for us to take a look at changing the current zoning to meet what we think is the new needs.
Thank you. And last, we'll hear from Paul.
Thank you. It's not a simple, we need to make X, Y, and Z change to the zoning. There's too many competing interests right now. There's people who are landowners who need to be able to make decisions for their land and sell their land. There are people who live on streets that need to know that their wells are going to stay full, that they're not going to go dry because of new homes that go up. There's a number of competing interests among the homeowners and the landowners in our town. I don't think this is a simple issue, and we're going to need to hear from everyone, and it may very well to be voted on in the future to see the majority of our residents agree to. Thank you.
Thank you. The sixth question tonight.
I'm sorry, is it possible to use a red card?
Sure. Yep, this would be a great time.
Great. I'd like to use a red card just to respond to a couple of things. First of all, I think there will always be competing interests. Nothing that Mr. St. John described is new or is going away. So that doesn't mean we avoid the problem. It means that we have to prepare to address it. I also think in order to adequately hear from those competing interests and balance them, that's why a representative committee such as that we had during the comprehensive plan was so important and was so effective. I think issues like water are just getting exacerbated by the increased growth in the town. I think we should examine whether our zoning is adequate to meet a lot of the water concerns. And perhaps one thing to consider is hydrology studies for any major subdivision, such as one that is going on right now, or even on an individual parcel basis, proving that there is enough water to have a well. But I don't think we should shy away from these issues because there are competing interests. I think it's all the more reason we need to confront them head on.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question will be, what do you think is the most important environmental issue facing the town today, and how would you respond to it? And this question will first go to Christopher.
That's a tough one. The most important environmental issue facing the town, I think, and this is based on my limited involvement over the last 8 months attending town board and planning board meetings, I've learned a lot about some of the issues facing, the residents of Charlton that I was not familiar with. And I think the big one is water and good groundwater and definitely agree that hydrology studies need to be completed possibly throughout the entire town to have an adequate picture of what's really going on with our groundwater, because yes, if the current zoning laws allow for the subdivisions that are planned and potentially could be available in the future, I think that would be a very difficult situation for a lot of our citizens if they don't have running clean water in a town like Charlton, where that should not even be a consideration. And I think that's probably one of the more pressing ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Paul.
I agree. It has to do a lot with water, whether it has to do with the wetlands and needing to update our laws and policies, whether there's enough water for people who use wells. I want to make it clear, I do not want to expand the water district that we currently have. I would prefer that we stick with wells and septic, and that we do not expand water lines. I think if we expand water lines, we are just begging for more expansion and more sprawl. So I think we do need to do the studies. We do need to understand what the limits are and put those into policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Our last response will be from Jenna.
I think the greatest issue is constant pressures to develop Charlton, because that does encompass a number of environmental issues. The first being water, access to water, it increased runoff, potential to pollute streams and tributaries. Encroachment on wetlands is another issue that has to be addressed, and one that is more prevalent with the more development that you see. Loss of open space, deforestation. Those are all issues that, come with unfettered development. Fortunately, because we do have robust zoning in place, there are issues that have been mitigated, but I think the trend to develop is going to continue. And as you keep developing, you get less and less desirable pieces of land that are being developed, and that presents increased environmental issues. So I think it's important that we make sure that our planning board has the tools they need to address them.
Thank you. Okay, so just a little housekeeping. Jenna has 1 red card remaining, and Paul and Christopher have both red cards remaining. So we're about halfway through our program. The question number 7 will first go to Paul. How do you plan to obtain strong and consistently reliable cell phone coverage for the western areas of the town of Charlton?
I think we're going to have to approach this on a multi-prong. We have to approach the businesses that are offering the services and not making them available as far as they should. And we need to start working with the state, and we need to start putting pressure on businesses that provide these services. If they're not going to provide services for everyone in our town, then we need to increase state regulation. And I think we can do that hand in hand with our state legislatures and put pressure on the businesses that provide those services to the residents of Charlton, or more specifically, are not providing those services to the residents of Charlton. Thank you.
Thank you. The next to respond is Jenna.
Thank you. I wasn't involved the last time that a cell tower was put in Charlton, but I think whenever that happens, there are a variety of issues that need to be addressed. I think ensuring that any such tower meets our rural character and has as minimal an effect aesthetically is important. I also think the contract is really important, and ensuring that you're reviewing it to protect the landowner and to protect the town's interest is essential. That's something that, I'm uniquely trained to do and will look out for. In terms of getting coverage to the areas, I think the answer is just that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so getting citizens together to vocalize and understanding where areas are underserved. We're in the process of drafting a broadband survey, and perhaps we could include questions about cell phone coverage just so that we can understand the problem and understand where we need to focus our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Christopher.
So yeah, this is a tough one, and I think this is another instance where there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstandings, and there's not going to be any one end-all be-all solution to it. We've seen that not only with the installation of this one cell tower that we thought we're hoping was going to provide coverage for the majority of the town, and it didn't appear to deliver on that. Again, was not involved in that process. Now that I'm on the chair or on the technology committee, I am involved with some of that information gathering and some of these projects, the current one being broadband. I think that what's important to understand is that, while I absolutely want to leverage these organizations, these big cellular companies that can provide these services to do so, they're slow, they're difficult to deal with, and people like Jenna, I will tell you that you have to be the squeaky wheel, absolutely. But there's also other solutions to this. Technology is making it possible for you to be able to get online, not necessarily directly over cellular. And, there's things like Starlink that are coming out. And if people understand that, okay, there might be another option, such as installing a wireless device in your house and having the appropriate internet coverage and be able to pass all of your cell traffic through your broadband, you don't necessarily need to have cellular service, but customers may not know that that's an option. And I think that's why it's very important, the technology committee and the residents of Charlton are involved and come to us and use us to help get them that information and understand there might be other options.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will first go to Jenna. Should the town consider selling the community center, and would you be in favor of allowing the use of our current town hall for groups to gather?
I oppose selling that building. That building is an integral part of the town's history. It was our town hall for over 100 years. And I think it's a treasured part of Charlton's history. One thing that I've always admired growing up in this town is the way that we appreciate our history and celebrate it. And I consider that building to be an integral part. That being said, the building is in drastic need of some repairs. So I've been leading the charge in terms of doing that. It's not going to be cheap, and I want to do it the right way. So I think it's going to be a multi-phased plan, relying a lot on hopefully grants and other sources of public funding for historic buildings. The seniors make great use of the buildings, and I hope that they continue to do so. And I think it's a community center, and so other groups I encourage to take advantage of that building. But I think absolutely it should stay a town building that can be used by all citizens, and I'm going to work very hard to ensure that it is restored in a responsible and historic way. Thank you.
Christopher?
No, I would never support selling that structure. I remember growing up, living on Valentine Road in Sweetman, and my mom being the zoning board. I think she was the not a property assessor, but I remember very vividly going there and sitting in her office at town hall on Tuesday nights for a couple of hours while she did her work. And yes, it's absolutely a staple of the town. It's been around for over 100 years. And we are faced with some very difficult decisions because it is in need of a lot of work. Torben Abayo and other citizens have been coming to every town board meeting every week, discussing this, pushing the town board to find ways for us to make those hard decisions, find the money that's necessary to preserve that building. And I'm in strong favor of everything they're doing. I'm very thankful for them. They're doing a terrific job.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Paul.
Now, I also would prefer that we keep that building in the town and that we do whatever we need to restore it. I'm sure there are fiscally responsible ways that we can do so, reaching out to the community for the funds that we need. I think there are a lot of people with a lot of memories for this structure. As Chris was saying, I remember myself that when the town court used to be there, and I was a teenager going for my first speeding ticket or whatever it was back then as a teenager, or when my father was holding office in there to spend some time in that building. And I really hope that we are able to make that work. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't use the new structures we have, though. So whether it be the new town hall or the new fire department or whatever structures we have in town, I think we should be leveraging them for all of our needs. We can take some of the pressure off of the building and start using some of the other spaces to help at this time. But I definitely do not want to sell that building. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Christopher. Route 67 and 147 on the west side of town sees frequent farm vehicle and tractor traffic. What steps would you take in making these roads safer for all drivers?
So I'm going to assume in the context of this conversation or this question that all drivers right. So we're not only talking about people and passenger vehicles traversing these roads, but also the farm individuals themselves who are driving tractor equipment on the roads. I think that's a tough one. I mean, that probably requires a multi-pronged approach. People from the town, I think, appreciate and know that farm equipment is a part of life. We see them, they get the big orange triangle on the back. You give them space, and you take your time getting places, and you give them the room. But I've also seen at rush hour times a mile-long trail behind, a manure truck. I'll be honest, I don't know exactly how we would address that. That might be a very difficult thing to tackle. And if that is a genuine concern, if I get appointed to the board, I would love to hear from people and start having the conversation about what that looks like.
Thank you. Paul?
I think it's an awareness issue. I think we all understand that Charlton is a rural agricultural town, and that there are facts of life here, that we understand that there are points, there are changes that we have to accept, whether it's farm equipment using the roads, whether it's the access to different pieces of property. I think it's just if it requires a campaign, if it requires information to be spread out there to say, hey, please be aware, especially you folks who are newly moved into Charlton, that this is a farming community, and that part of living in this community and in this rural area is that there will be agricultural traffic using our roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And last, we'll hear from Jenna.
Thank you. I think this is a really important issue. We've unfortunately seen some horrific accidents in that part of town involving farm vehicles. I'll say also at no fault to the farmer. One of the easiest solutions is, and this is a goal that was identified in our comprehensive plan, but putting signs as you enter that area of town, marking it as an ag district, and just a caution sign so that people know that they need to be aware and watch for farm vehicles. I think that is a proposal that's been floated several times but never funded. And I think that the cost of the signs, which is a one-time expense, is certainly worth it if we can help save a life. I also think perhaps more frequent patrols in that area would be helpful. But I think that getting those signs in place is a pretty low cost when you think about the benefit, and something that we should certainly consider.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will go first to Paul. Do you now, or will you in the future, support property revaluation?
I do not now support property revaluation. I don't think we can avoid it forever. I think at some point we are going to have to do a revaluation. I know it's very expensive. Currently, between the economy, inflation, employment numbers are not what folks have hoped for. I think this is a bad time to do a revaluation. It's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, and I hope when our economy is better, when our economy is stronger, we will have to do it. But I want to put that off for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Jenna.
Thank you. I don't think a reval is warranted at the current time. I think it's important that we monitor our equalization rate and be prepared to do a reval if one is necessitated in the future. I think there are, of course, some disparities in tax assessments in this town. The further away you get from a reval, the more you'll probably find. I stay in close contact with our chair of our assessment review committee, who happens to be my mother. And I think, citizens need to know that there is a process. So if you feel like your assessment is out of whack, I encourage you to go visit Kim Karen. She's wonderfully competent at her job, and can deal with any anomalies in that way. Another thing is a reval is very expensive. So it's something that we need to plan for in the budget, because it's going to be a huge outlay in the event that we need to do that. I also think we need to be mindful that a reval could disproportionately affect senior citizens, many of whom live on a fixed income. So it's not something that I would do lightly. And I would try to do it in a way to minimize any impact on our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll hear from Christopher.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't currently support a reevaluation, as both the other candidates stated. You can't put off something forever. It may be necessary in the future. If people think that their assessment currently is not accurate, there are methods and processes to go through to have that reviewed and make adjustments if necessary. And beyond that, I don't have terribly much more to add. The other candidates pretty much hit it on the head. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Jenna. For which departments, boards, or commissions are you best suited to serve as a liaison, and what skills and experience can you bring to bear in this capacity?
Thank you. I think that I am best served as the liaison to the land use departments, which is where I currently am. I think it does require a fair amount of specialized knowledge, and even despite my 4 years serving on the comprehensive plan, there's still a lot to learn. That being said, I also think it's important as a town board member to be well-rounded and to be familiar and to be engaged in what's going on with every department, because I don't think you're serving the town well if you just focus on your narrow issues. I also think that I would be uniquely positioned to lead the broadband committee. That is not my issue area, but I feel passionately that expanding broadband to all of Charlton's citizens is imperative, especially in the past year where you've seen children and people having to work from home. So that's an issue or an area that's not technically within my purview, but I am fighting to be heard on that issue as an antitrust lawyer, as a person who currently lives without broadband, and I hope my connection is okay. And someone who's worked in the federal government and has a relationship with people in the FCC and in both houses of Congress. I have value to add on this issue. And unfortunately, I feel like I've been a bit shut out by people because it's not my assigned issue. But I think our town's residents are going to be well served if everyone who has something valuable to contribute is allowed to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Christopher.
Thank you. So yeah, boards and committees that I think that I would be uniquely interested or be able to lend a strong hand to if I was the liaison. The technology committee, for one. I'm currently the chair of that. I have a very strong technology background, and I've been trying to leverage that for almost the last year to help the town hall make some serious upgrades to their infrastructure so that they can maintain functionality with no disruptions to day-to-day operations, while also being secure and safe. Outside that, I think it would also be good or fun for me to do roads and drainage, buildings and parks, or buildings and grounds. I'm fairly mechanically inclined, and I also have a construction background. I do enjoy those types of things. I think it'd be fun to interact with the highway department. I love cars. I love working on my own car, and I love looking at those big rigs, and would love to work with Marshall Heritage on what he needs and how we can best plow the snow off in the winters. And other than that, yeah, the broadband committee, I know that is a big thing for Jenna, and it's a big thing for me. I think it's unfortunate that in this day and age in a town like Charlton, that there are residents that don't have high-speed internet. And at this point in time, it should be treated as a utility. There should be no reason that a teacher has to stay home from school because of a COVID quarantine and be unable to adequately remotely connect to her students to teach them. I mean, everybody suffers in that situation. So that's my time. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, we'll hear from Paul.
I think if I had a preference, I would prefer to work with parks use, but I don't have a particular preference. I think that we all have the ability to be liaisons to the different needs. And I do hope that we have an opportunity to work with multiple committees and to expand our knowledge of all these areas. So as much as I would enjoy, I think, parks, I would want to be available to any place that had a need and that I could fill that need. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next question will go first to Christopher. Should the town of Charlton adopt a solar energy strategy for municipal properties or solar farms?
So I don't know that we should immediately just say that we need to adopt something, but I absolutely believe that, technology is changing every day. I keep harping on that. That's my background. I apologize to everybody who's heard it now 10 times. But solar is making leaps and bounds right now. The cost per kilowatt to not only produce the panels, install them, to generate the power is dropping like a stone, and the efficiency rates of these panels is increasing. And as the technologies are adopting, that trend is going to continue to exist. I think we're going to have to strike a fine balance. Absolutely. Do I want to be driving down the road and see, Mitchell's farm with 100 acres of solar panels? I don't know that that fits the rural characteristics and feel of the town of Charlton. But if there was some opportunity or initiative for some larger solar installer to, work with the town to help install solar panels on the roofs of existing homes, or for us to take a stance and codify into the zoning laws that any new construction has got to have a solar panel on it, I would absolutely be interested to see what that looks like and have a conversation. Thank you.
And now we've come to the last question for the evening. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. I didn't give Jenna and Paul a chance. Sorry. We're going to hear from Jenna next. Nope. Paul. Paul is the next person.
Thank you. I'm against the industrial solar panel use. I don't think that it serves our needs in this town. I don't think we're at the point where the solar and wind can replace all of our energy needs. If anybody with their private property wants to put up some panels on their home or a few on their property, I think that's up to them. And if we need to visit the zoning laws on that, I'm fine, happy to do so. But as far as zoning for the town of Charlton, I am definitely against industrial sized solar panel farms. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And Jenna.
Thank you. First of all, I think it's important to always have a plan. I think at this juncture, adopting a large-scale industrial solar is not appropriate in the town of Charlton. That being said, I think that it's important to be informed. The town of Ballston just this week passed commercial solar regulations, and I know that they did have provisions to help protect rural landscapes. But there's still the issue of the electrical infrastructure needed to install the panels, which and many other concerns. I also think another reason why it's not a good candidate in Charlton is it's going to drive up the price of farmland. So solar companies will be able to either access leased farmland or purchase land at a price that farmers just can't compete with. So while I am a big proponent of renewable energy and think it's important that we explore and invest in alternative types of fuel, I don't think that commercial solar is a viable option in Charlton. And I think that it would have some negative effect on our rural vistas and the price of farmland that prevent it from being a viable option to consider in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we've come to the last question for the evening. And first person to answer it will be Paul. How do you plan to govern in a transparent and unbiased manner? And how will you improve communication of town services and policies to all residents?
Well, I think that we currently have a great plan in place where we have the ability for residents to sign up for bulletins, for emails. There's newsletters. There's the ability to attend meetings, whether it be town board meetings or wherever we are. I plan on being accessible, whether it's my personal email address, whether it's my personal phone number. I'm no desire to hide the ball. I want everyone to know exactly who I am, what I support, and if that if that fits with the residents of Charlton, then great, then I'm the man, then I'm their man. And if not, then I'm fine with that too. Whatever the majority of the town wants, I'll continue to work to support the Republican Party, and I'll continue to work on supporting with the town and all their initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Jenna.
Thank you. Transparency and open communication are two of the most important values that I hold. I think that we can always do a better job of publicizing when meetings are happening and work to get meeting minutes posted on the town's website. I also think that we need to be prepared. Many people are consuming their news on social media, so increasing the accessibility and availability of information in those ways is also important. That also brings up the need to combat misinformation. So I think, having an eye on what's being said and ensuring that town happenings are being communicated in an open, honest, and unbiased way is really important. As a lawyer, I live my life like everything is subject to a FOIL request. So I think as a town board member, I try to include every town board member and any relevant department head on my communications. I believe the strongest decisions are made by as representative a group as possible, and information is power. So I try to include as many people as is helpful in my communications. I also am available. Most residents I interact with know my cell phone number, know my email, and I strive to be as available as I possibly can be. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll hear from Christopher.
Thank you. Yes, transparency and open communications is key. I think in today's day and age, especially with misinformation and the ability for social media to go viral and things to be misconstrued is just too strong. And I think that we need to kind of bring it back to a personal level. And I agree with both Paul and Jenna, where I would be happy to give out my email, and again, the town board email, to anybody, and even my cell phone, because I want people to think and know that just because we're on the town board and we meet, every other Tuesday or every other Monday, that we are available all days in between. We have lives and we are working on other things. What the town is dealing with, the issues, the problems, the stuff they want us to talk about is important to us. And even though 67-147, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what people want, but I want people to know that they can come to me, they can communicate that with me, and that I will bring that to the other board members and whoever else I think is relevant or could be helpful in the situation, and involve them so that we address the issues, have the appropriate information, and can make the best decisions possible based on all the most relevant information. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our question and answer session. Now we're going to have closing statements. Candidates, you have no more than 1 minute each to give your closing statements. We're going to go in the same rotation as we opened. First, we'll hear from Paul.
Thank you. I hope that I've made it clear that I provide a point of view from a conservative Republican ideal, that I support the years and decades of leadership that have come before me and resulted in the town that we have now, in the rural nature, in the agricultural town that we have, staying away from urban sprawl, making the tough decisions. I wish to participate in that legacy. I wish to be part of that, and I hope that the majority of Charlton residents agree with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Now we'll hear from Jenna.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in tonight's discussion. I think it was very illuminating and helpful, hopefully, for the voters. I hope I've made it clear that I'm not going to be motivated by any partisan ideology, and I'm going to approach every issue as every issue. And I'm going to make informed decisions, and I'm going to approach my job as an independent thinker who's determined to do the best thing for Charlton. I hope that my experience as both a lawyer and as a small business, not owner, but intimately involved in my family business, and as a woman and as a farmer, I think it does immediately allow me to add value. And we've talked about all of these issues, and these are all issues that I feel like I have a unique perspective that will assist Charlton's residents. So thank you for having this discussion. I really appreciated the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And lastly, we'll hear from Christopher.
Yes, thank you, everybody. This was a terrific experience. I was glad that I was able to be a part of this. I struggled with what I wanted to say in my closing remarks, and I think I'll end with, after having had this evening with everybody, with this. When I wanted to get involved with the town of Charlton and showed up to interview for the town board, and then subsequently the chair of the technology committee, and then the Charlton Snowmobile Club, what broke my heart the most is that they didn't seem to be anybody else. And, you know, I think it is nice to know that there's at least 3 people in the town of Charlton who feel strongly enough to stand up, offer up their time, and at least be committed enough to show up, pay attention, bring a notebook, write down the notes of our fellow community members, and try and do the best thing possible. And, you know, I hope that people understand that I'm not running against anybody. I'm just trying to run for Charlton. And I thank you, everybody, for their time. I look forward to hopefully working with everybody in the future regardless. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. I want to tell the audience, please remember to vote. Early voting starts Saturday, October 23rd, and continues through October 31st. Absentee ballots could be requested in person until November 1st and returned in person until November 2nd by 9 p.m. The general election is November 2nd. Polls open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Besides the candidates on your ballot, there will be 5 proposals on the back of the ballot. So you have to turn your ballot over. Don't forget to turn it over, and you can check with your Board of Elections for polling places. Thank you, candidates, for attending tonight and for giving the voters your views on the issues that they care about. And thank you, audience, for taking the time to listen. Good night.